There have been some challenges in the path to ministry as a woman. I was raised in the Roman Catholic tradition, which does not ordain women. And so that was something that not only did the tradition of my youth and my ancestry not allow women in ministry, I also didn't have female role models. In fact, it wasn't until I was in college at St. Norbert College that I saw a woman in campus ministry and realized that this could be a career path that was open to me. However, going to Catholic seminary, and planning to work in the Roman Catholic tradition, I still ended up butting up against what some folks have euphemistically called the stained glass ceiling. There's only so far that women can go in that tradition. The United Church of Christ is a very open denomination, and it actually was the first to ordain a woman since biblical times. We ordained a woman first in 1853, so it has a very long tradition of honoring the gifts and the call of women. Nonetheless, there have been some things that have been a struggle for me. I'll never forget the day before my ordination, a friend came over to my apartment and I was ironing my vestments. And she just looked at me and she said, "You know, if you were a guy, there'd be somebody else doing this for you." And that you could have knocked me over with a feather, because that is the reality. And even though the United Church of Christ has been ordaining women since 1853, the reality is that some of the, most of the bigger churches and the stronger, healthier churches have been resistant to women in ministry. This church, Union Congregational United Church of Christ, is the longest continually meeting congregation in the state of Wisconsin. We were founded in 1836, and yet I'm the first female senior pastor. So this church had 179 years of ministry before being led by a woman. So while there have been struggles and there have been times where it's been difficult to be a woman in ministry, there are also some real gifts that I have found. I have to say that there have been countless people who've told me just how profound and meaningful it has been for them to hear a woman proclaiming the communion liturgy. I think that being a woman has really been a benefit in a lot of pastoral care contexts. Because ministry is so relational, I feel like very often people will let me in and will go deep in ways that they may not with some others. And so there's a tremendous amount of connection and grace that comes through being able to build those relationships and people letting you in perhaps ways that they might not some others. The other thing that I think is very different in having a female voice, particularly from the pulpit, is that for centuries, really, the stories about women in the scriptures have been preached from a male context and from a male voice. And there's something that can be very refreshing about hearing those stories preached from a woman's perspective. I'll never forget when I was on a Roman Catholic Church staff, I was part of a Christmas party for our church council. And we always, being a church, even Christmas parties start with worship. So we had this Christmas party and worship beforehand. The scriptures of the day were the story of Elizabeth, Mary's kinswoman in the Bible, who had been barren for several decades, well into her late middle age, and then miraculously became pregnant. And I remember looking out amongst the women who were gathered for worship before this party and realizing that only 2 of the 15 women there had ever given birth. And thinking of just the inner emotional experience of hearing stories of fertility and infertility, and having those be preached exclusively from a male perspective, and what that might do in someone's spiritual life and faith experience. And so part of what that has done in my ministry is I have worked very hard to lift up stories about women, but also to be very careful to nuance our worship and our liturgies to honor a breadth of human experience, knowing that the people in the pews really bring so much to the table, and we want to make sure that we are careful with their stories as well. When you asked what kind of an artifact I might offer, the first thing that I thought of was this rainbow stole. So a stole is a symbol of ordination. I was taught that when you put a stole on, you are to pray the verse from the Gospel of Matthew, "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And so the idea is that a stole yokes us and reminds us that we are pulling in the same direction as God and Jesus. And also that idea that the yoke is easy and the burden is light, that this is a ministry and that we are sharing those burdens with God, that we aren't holding and carrying them alone. Then the reason I thought of this stole in particular, it was made by one of my congregants' mothers, by a woman by the name of Carol Jones. And it's a beautiful rainbow watercolored silk stole. And so, of course, the rainbow is the symbol of LGBTQ pride, but it's also a religious symbol of love and joy and triumph amidst the struggle.